Cost of living is not just a reflection of how wealthy a place looks. It shows how a country manages space, resources, labor, and capital, and who its economic system is ultimately designed to serve. In 2026, the gap between the world's most expensive countries and the rest continues to widen. Housing, food, services, and daily expenses do not rise evenly. Instead, they concentrate heavily in a small number of locations with very specific economic structures. This list ranks 10 of the most expensive countries to live in the world, based on real monthly living costs for a single person, rather than luxury perception or short-term travel experience. Each country appears here for a different reason, reflecting different pressures behind high living costs. This is not a list about good or bad choices, but about understanding what high cost of living actually represents. Let's begin. Number 10. Hong Kong. Hong Kong continues to rank as a high cost of living location in 2026, with expenses shaped less by luxury and more by structural scarcity. Space is limited, demand remains constant, and pricing reflects that reality across nearly every category. For a single person, average monthly living costs sit around $3,500, including basic daily expenses and housing. Rent is the dominant factor, with small apartments commanding prices that rival or exceed those in most global cities. Food, transportation, and personal services also come at a premium, reinforcing the overall cost pressure. This dynamic is most visible in areas such as Central Kowloon and Hong Kong Island, where density and economic activity are concentrated. At the same time, salaries in sectors like finance, trade, and professional services are relatively high, helping many residents maintain purchasing power despite elevated prices. What ultimately sustains life at this cost level is efficiency. Reliable public transport, safety, and a highly structured urban system support a quality of life that, while expensive, remains predictable and functional. Number 9. United States Virgin Islands. The United States Virgin Islands operate under a pricey cost structure driven primarily by geography. As an island territory, the local economy depends heavily on imports, which raises the baseline cost of everyday life. A single resident typically spends about $3,200 per month to cover basic living expenses. Food, household goods, and utilities are notably more expensive than on the U.S. mainland, while housing prices reflect limited supply and consistent demand from tourism and higher-income residents. Costs are most apparent in St. Thomas and St. Croix, where population density and economic activity are highest. Average wages are not universally high, but income from tourism, offshore business, and remote work allows certain groups to absorb the expense more easily. In this context, high living costs are less about excess consumption and more about logistics and isolation, balanced by safety, political stability, and a slower pace of life. Number 8. Ireland. Ireland is widely viewed as an expensive place to live, with costs that have risen steadily and unevenly across the country. The pressure is not universal, but it becomes very clear once housing enters the picture. For a single person, average monthly living costs are around $3,100, including rent and basic expenses. The situation is most pronounced in Dublin, where housing shortages have pushed rents up year after year. Beyond housing, groceries, transportation, and utilities are consistently priced above the European average. High-paying sectors such as technology, finance, and pharmaceuticals allow many expatriates to manage these costs. However, income levels vary sharply, and purchasing power depends heavily on profession and location rather than nationality alone. Despite the price level, Ireland maintains a strong appeal through economic stability, a reliable job market, and well-functioning public services, which together support a solid overall quality of life. Number 7. Luxembourg. Luxembourg combines a high cost of living with some of the highest incomes in the world, creating a pricing environment that is intense but internally balanced. Its small size amplifies demand while limiting supply, especially in housing. A single resident typically spends about $3,500 per month on everyday living expenses. Food, childcare, and personal services also carry premium pricing compared to neighboring countries. What offsets these costs is income. Salaries in finance, law, and European institutions are among the highest globally, preserving strong purchasing power for many residents. Limited space and economic concentration keep prices elevated, but the trade-off comes in the form of safety, efficient public infrastructure, and one of the most stable living environments in Europe. Number 6 are Bahamas. The Bahamas is consistently described as an expensive country to live in, largely because everyday life is shaped by import dependence rather than local production. Being a Caribbean island nation, most food, consumer goods, and building materials must be brought in from abroad. For a single person, average monthly living costs are around $3,400. Groceries and household items are notably expensive, and housing prices reflect strong demand from international retirees and high-net-worth individuals. Utilities and services also trend higher due to scale and logistics. Costs are most visible in Nassau and Paradise Island, where economic activity and foreign demand are concentrated. While there is no personal income tax, this advantage is partly offset by heavy import duties that raise day-to-day expenses. What defines life at this price point is lifestyle positioning. The country offers safety, political stability, and a relaxed environment, but maintaining that standard comes with a clear and ongoing financial commitment. Number 5, Iceland. Iceland's high cost of living is driven by geography. Its remote location and small population mean that a large share of food and consumer goods must be imported, pushing prices well above continental European norms. A single resident typically spends about $3,600 per month to cover basic living expenses. Food prices are particularly high, and services such as dining, transportation, and maintenance reflect the cost of operating in a sparsely populated country. Housing costs add further pressure, especially in and around Reykjavik. Wages in Iceland are relatively strong, and social systems help support purchasing power, even as prices remain elevated. For many residents, income and public services together soften the impact of daily expenses. In return for the cost, the country delivers safety, social stability, and a high standard of public infrastructure, making quality of life the primary justification for the price level. Number 4, Switzerland. Switzerland is widely recognized as one of the most expensive countries in the world, with high prices spread evenly across nearly every category of daily life. Unlike places where one factor dominates costs, expenses here are elevated across the board. For a single person, average monthly living costs are around $3,900. Housing is costly in major cities such as Zurich, Geneva, and Basel, while groceries, healthcare, insurance, and transportation consistently rank among the most expensive globally. The strength of the Swiss franc further increases the cost burden for foreigners. High wages help balance these expenses. Switzerland offers some of the strongest purchasing power in Europe, and income levels in finance, pharmaceuticals, engineering, and international organizations often scale with the cost of living. What sustains this price level is reliability. Public services function efficiently, safety standards are high, and infrastructure quality remains exceptional, making daily life expensive but highly dependable. Number 3 is Singapore. Singapore operates under an extremely high cost of living, driven by land scarcity and its role as a global financial hub. Prices are shaped less by consumption habits and more by structural limits on space and resources. A single resident typically spends about $4,000 per month to maintain a comfortable lifestyle. Housing costs dominate the equation, particularly in central districts, while food and transportation add further pressure due to near-total reliance on imports. The cost concentration is most visible across the city-state, with no true low-cost districts. At the same time, salaries in finance, technology, and multinational corporations are among the highest in Asia, helping many professionals sustain strong purchasing power. In exchange for these costs, residents benefit from safety, world-class infrastructure, and a highly efficient public system, placing quality of life firmly alongside economic intensity. Number 2, Cayman Islands. The Cayman Islands are commonly described as an extremely expensive place to live, shaped by their role as a global offshore financial center. High-income individuals and international businesses set a pricing baseline far above regional norms. For a single person, Average monthly living costs are around $4,200. Housing accounts for a significant portion of that figure, while food, utilities, and everyday services remain costly due to near-total reliance on imports. Even routine expenses reflect the island economy's limited scale. Costs are most apparent in and around Georgetown, where financial activity and expatriate demand are concentrated. While there is no personal income tax, this advantage is offset by elevated prices across nearly all consumer categories. What defines life here is financial positioning. Strong safety standards, political stability, and modern infrastructure support a high quality of life, but only for those prepared to operate at this cost level. Number 1. Monaco. Standing at the very top of the global ranking of the most expensive countries to live in, the position belongs to Monaco. This is not driven by trend or volatility, but by a cost structure that has remained consistently extreme for decades. For a single person, average monthly living costs reach roughly $5,500, even before luxury spending is considered. Housing defines the entire equation. Supply is extraordinarily limited, demand is global, and prices are dictated more by availability than by personal preference. Daily expenses, from dining to basic services, follow the same premium logic. All cost pressure is concentrated within Monaco itself, where population density and wealth concentration are among the highest in the world. Residents typically belong to the ultra, high net worth category, and while there is no personal income tax, entry barriers remain exceptionally high. At this level, cost is not a side effect but a feature. Security, public services, and living standards operate at the highest tier, making price an integral part of the environment rather than something to be balanced against it. Living in the world's most expensive countries is rarely about consumption alone. High costs usually reflect deeper forces such as limited space, global capital flows, or deliberate economic positioning. What these countries share is not affordability, but clarity. The cost of living is visible, predictable, and closely connected to income potential, public services, and overall quality of life. In 2026, understanding that balance matters more than the number itself when deciding where to live long-term. If you found this breakdown useful, like, share, and subscribe to the channel to stay updated with future videos. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.